Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my top 5 most anticipated levels for the original trilogy of LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. If you haven't seen my previous video, I've gone through my top 5 most anticipated levels for the prequels already, and next week will be my top 5 most anticipated levels for the sequels, of course. But for now, we're going through episodes 4, 5 and 6, and I'll be doing my top 5, and then I'll be throwing a couple of honourable mentions in there as well. Because I can't cover every level, there is way more than just 5 levels in this part of the game that will be covering 3 entire movies. But at number 5 is the Ewok slaughter. So stormtroopers aren't the most powerful people to feature in the Star Wars, but theoretically, if they were to come up against some literal teddy bears, I would put money on the Empire, and somehow I would lose that bet. But the opportunity to batter soldiers as a tiny little Ewok, Wicket to be specific, is not something I'm willing to pass up on. Ewok Hunt in Battlefront 2 was plenty of fun and doing something very similar here, but feeling a lot stronger is going to be a very enjoyable power trip. If you remember Battlefront 2, your spears did very, very little damage, and in a 1v1 the Ewok was never going to come out on top against a full health stormtrooper. But here I think the story is going to be a bit different. Hopefully we get access to all possible makeshift weapons throughout the level, whether that's spears, whisties, bows, slingshots, you name it. If an Ewok has held it, I want to murder a stormtrooper with it. And at number 4 we have the Hoth Assault from Empire Strikes Back. This level type is going to have the biggest overhaul of any in the entire game, because the introduction to Episode 5 and the entire defense of the Hoth base took place in a 2D area in the complete saga. I mean, technically the image is 3D, but you can't fly up or down, you just hover above the ground and then launch torpedoes in every direction possible. But this time around, with the completely reworked flying mechanics, we're going to be able to genuinely feel like we're living out the scene ripped straight from the film. Extra credit if we get to take over from Luke's perspective at the end, grapple ourselves up to the AT-AT and take it down ourselves, although I expect it to take place in a cutscene. And either way, this level is iconic and I cannot wait to play through it. Now, Vader and Luke were always going to dominate the higher spots on this list, so seeing them together at number 3 can't be too much of a shock, but they are not alone. There is a third party in this level, and his name is Sheev. So third place on my most anticipated is Luke and Vader versus Palpatine from Episode 6. It's going to be very interesting to see how TT pull this off, because in the complete saga, Vader immediately turns, which of course allows 2 friends who are playing in co-op the chance to control someone each. But whether that happens here, and especially whether it happens at the start, is yet to be seen. But if it does, it could be the one time that we get to play as Vader whilst in story mode, as long as you don't count Anakin from the prequels as the same figure. Otherwise we'll just have to wait till free mode before playing through these levels as Darth Vader himself. Now, taking second place, and most of you probably knew this would be right up at the top, and in your own personal lists, this could be taking the top spot and that wouldn't surprise me at all. But my second most anticipated level is the first saber duel between Luke and his father, taking place on Bespin. The location of the carbonite chamber creates such a perfect, almost horror atmosphere as Vader hunts you down, and that's not even getting to the most infamous scene in Star Wars. On the bridge hanging over the abyss, before Vader reaches into his pocket and furiously gestures to the picture of him and Padme before Luke realises she's pregnant. It's the most quoted scene in Star Wars, as long as you don't use Twitter, because then it becomes prequel memes. But the fateful battle on Bespin is going to be one of my main targets as soon as I begin the original trilogy. And before we get on to the final top pick, there are some honourable mentions that I want to give out. First off, to the entire Jabba's Palace sequence, from Luke's fight with a Rancor to the barge fight and showdown with Boba Fett, which seems to be a fair bit longer than his actual feature time in the movie here. There's a tiny clip of Chewie on what looks like a turret firing at a hovering Boba Fett, so it's nice that they've dragged out his screen time a little bit more than before. The first lightsaber duel in Star Wars history deserves a mention too, with Ben versus Vader hopefully being playable, the Death Star 2 space battle, and finally the training on Dagobah with Yoda on Luke's back is going to be a blast to play through. But with no further ado, let's get on to the top spot, because of course at number 1 it is the trench run and the entire assault on the Death Star from A New Hope. Just like the Snowspeeder level, this is going to feel completely new now that we get to fly a starfighter in a 3-dimensional space. There are bonus points there to be awarded if this level starts with you approaching the Death Star before flying down onto the surface, because that's such an iconic shot. But either way, this is the ultimate level in all trilogies in my opinion. Sure, there's the Duel of the Fates and the Battle of Heroes, but this is Star Wars personified, and getting to see the ships speed away right before the battle station's iconic destruction will be fulfilling the dream of every long-time Star Wars fan. It would also be great for the second player to get to join in as the Millennium Falcon rather than the second X-Wing, but either way, 1 or 2 player, I absolutely cannot wait to play through this level. And that is that. Those are my top 5 most anticipated levels for the original trilogy. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and let me know down below. As with the prequel trilogy, everyone has their own opinion, and I doubt yours will be the same as mine. So let me know your top 5 and anything that I haven't included on this list, because there will be levels that I haven't included. There were last time, and I'm sure there will be again. So let me know down below. And before I go, I just wanted to mention a couple of the lists from the previous video, because there were some great points brought up and some levels that I hadn't even included in the honourable mentions that somehow snuck past me. First off, from Clue Viewer, I completely forgot about the Anakin versus Tuscan Raiders scene from Attack of the Clones. That is going to be so amazing, just slaughtering through the Tuscan camp. It feels a bit more harsh now that we've seen the Book of Boba Fett and there's a bit more humanity to them, but still a very standout scene from the films that I cannot wait to see. And in that list there was Darth Maul versus Kenobi and Qui-Gon at the top, followed by the pod race, the Tuscan Raiders slaughter, followed by the Battle of Geonosis, and finally Yoda versus Sidious, which is a very fair list and something that I'd be crazy to say any of those levels aren't extremely exciting to me. And next up from Adriel Figueroa, my favourite person. I don't play favourites on this channel, but if I would, Adriel Figueroa is my favourite person in the entire world. He's been here since less than 100 subscribers, and he still pops up so consistently throughout the videos, so thank you so much for your support, man. And your list was also very good, because it had Anakin versus Obi-Wan at the top. That is as long as Ahsoka versus Maul isn't included. Followed by Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul, Yoda versus Sidious, Mace versus Sidious if that's included, and finally Obi-Wan versus Grievous. And there was also one other comment which I'm not going to read out, but might be the greatest comment I've ever seen included on a Star Wars video. Nevertheless, one of my videos. But that is everything for this video. Like if you enjoyed, as I said before, let me know down below your list, and I'll talk about them in the next video, which will be about the sequel trilogy. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and hopefully I will see you next time.